Welcome to Before the Echo,
A 12-pointer in Kansas. Can you believe it?
the podcast about what happens before the shot,
Man, look
before
at
the
that.
arrow's released, and before the story gets told.
Can you believe that?
I'm your host, Josh Talker. This show is built for the whitetail woods, breaking down proven tactics, real stories from the tree, and gear setups that help you be more successful on stand. Let's get into it.
Meh.
No, we only went 50 yards. Look at him, guys. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Before we get into it with Greg here, I got to thank a few of my partners that help make the show possible. And that first one is Latitude Outdoors. I got a bunch of new gear coming out this year, sticks, packs, all kinds of exciting stuff from Latitude. So if you need any mobile hunting gear, make sure you go check those guys out over at latitudeoutdoors.com. And then Osseo gear. Osseo is a great turkey pattern. Turkey season is right around the corner. They got their new turkey vest that just came out. It's kind of a limited supply run of those. So if you're interested in those, it'd be a good idea to get your order in for the turkey vest. And also, if you want to get your hands on some of the Osseo gear, all around the country this year, they're going to like 26 different shows. So make sure you check your local sporting show. Osseo is probably going to be in the area if you want to try on some of their gear. Lifetime warranty on everything that they make, osseogear.com. And then if you need some new optics, go check out Hawk Optics. They're actually based out of Fort Wayne, Indiana up here, and which is real close to where I live at. They have dealers all over the country. So make sure you go check their dealer list if you're interested in some new binos or a new scope for your rifle. They also make red dots that I used last year during turkey season. That worked really good. So Hawk Optics, go make sure you check those guys out. You can order online as well, but they do have dealers all over the country. And then Razor broadheads. If you need some new broadheads, make sure you check out Razor. Give them guys over there a chance. They got everything from 125 grain cut on contact single bevel all the way up to 300 grains. RazorBroadheads.com. All right, let's get Greg in here. How's it going, man?
Hey, man. Good to see you again.
Yes, it's been whatever. When was that? December.
Yeah, been a few months.
Yeah, feels like a long time for some reason.
It does.
This part of the year just drags on for me. Just that lull between deer season and turkey season seems like it takes a long time.
Yep. Yeah, unless you're into ice fishing or have something like that to do coyote hunting, it is kind of a slow time of year.
Yeah, and I'm not into either one of those things. We don't get the opportunity to ice fish in southern Indiana, at least not regularly enough to be into it. And then I could get into coyote hunting. I actually just got thermals this year to do all that stuff, but time is a valuable asset right now for me. So I haven't got a chance to go out and even try this stuff out yet. How'd your season end up? Did you get to go do some bird hunting?
I did. Yeah. Personally, I ended my season around the first of the year. After the holidays, got to do a little bit of deer hunting, tried for a couple days with a bow, had a good encounter with a buck on the ground that I thought I was going to get a shot at him. It looked like he was going to hit a fence line and come down towards me and give me anywhere from a 5 to 10 yard shot. I was basically set up on the end of a fence row where there was like a big fence post, and then the gate had been open right there, the fence had been open. It was kind of in a T intersection. So anyways, made a little natural blind right there and thought he was going to hit the fence line and come right down. And it was going to be like a chip shot, 5, 10 yards. He ended up going the other way down the fence line. So, but that was a fun way, with the bow to end the bow hunting portion of the season. And then a couple days after that, I had a antlerless only rifle tag. And I was able to, the first day I hunted a different area and got on a bunch of deer, but it was a bachelor group of bucks. There was like 6 or 7 bucks that all came through, within 50 yards. So it was, of course, hunting, on an antlerless tag and have a bunch of bucks come by. Go figure.
Of course.
But one of them was, one that I definitely would have shot had I had a buck tag. But anyways, the next day I went back to the same spot, kind of refined my setup a little bit and shot a doe. So that was, a lot of fun. And actually I got to thinking about it, and it was the first doe that I've ever shot with a high power rifle.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I've shot a few with a high power rifle, I guess, now that I think about it. But
Yeah.
The high power rifle thing, that was we couldn't hunt with high power rifles in Indiana for the longest time, and so there was a stretch of years where I was excited about getting to hunt with one because I never had before, and it's kind of worn off now, but it's still fun, but the newness is worn off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Like, I grew up bow hunting and then kind of introduced muzzleloader hunting when the deer population in Nebraska exploded early 2000s. There got to be more, opportunities with antlerless only hunts with muzzleloaders. So that was a lot of fun, because it extends your range a little bit, beyond bow range. So it's kind of a fun, happy medium between, 50 to 100 yards was still within range. Whereas, stepping up to high power rifle, then you're, obviously you can shoot out to 300 yards, 400 yards if you're good enough shot. So,
right. Well, for a long time in Indiana, it was shotgun only, or muzzleloader. And like the real serious deer hunters, whenever muzzleloader technology kind of surpassed shotgun accuracy, if you were a serious deer hunter, you typically used a muzzleloader. You didn't use a shotgun in Indiana. And it's funny how times have changed so much,
Yeah.
Yep. And now muzzleloaders are catching back up with rifles, like the technology of muzzleloaders,
Yep, it's wild.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I was wondering about your I didn't, a lot of people may not know that about you, because I didn't really know this about you, that you are pretty passionate about bird hunting.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very much so. Yep. Even on that trip, like before I got out deer hunting, I stopped at a spot, picked up a rooster there, and went on to my deer hunting spot. And on the way back home, I went back to the same exact piece because it was like the only one between, where I deer hunted and home. But anyways, picked up a rooster and a grouse to finish the season there.
There you go.
So yeah.
Where did the bird hunting thing come from you, Greg? Have you just grown up with it?
Yeah, I grew up with it in Nebraska. Yep.
Yeah.
Pheasant populations in the 80s and 90s in Nebraska were quite good. They, declined over time, unfortunately. And particularly I'm thinking of my family farm. Like, we used to be able to go out there and pheasant hunt and have good hunts. Wouldn't always limit out, especially if you had multiple guys, on 160 acres. But it was good enough to where you could go out and get into pheasants and sometimes quail, on a regular basis. So it was a lot of fun. And now, on the family farm, there are virtually no pheasants left to hunt. Or at least, if there are any, nobody hunts them because there are so few. But that's where it started. And then went to college, and it was pretty good pheasant hunting around Lincoln, Nebraska, central Nebraska. And then I got out of it for a long time, probably 15 years, 17 years, something like that. And just got back into it in the past few years, now that I live in South Dakota, and there are, incredible bird hunting opportunities, not only for pheasants. You got sharp-tailed grouse, prairie chicken, Hungarian partridge. So
yeah.
Yep.
That is if you want to call it a sport, whatever. That's something that feels like it's degrading pretty rapidly with habitat loss. Like Indiana used to have some of that stuff, and you never see a pheasant in Indiana anymore. Pretty rare, unless one gets out of a put hunt. And we had a big CRP field. We had a lot of quail down here. We had a 40-acre CRP field we used to be able to hunt. And there was a lot of quail in that. You still see cubbies of quail from time to time, but like that CRP field, they took it out of the program, and it's just a crop field now. So that habitat's gone, and just a snowball effect with the birds, it seems like.
Yep. Habitat loss, farming practices are so much different.
Yeah.
Fence to fence farming instead of, the rougher harvest, and then, the feathered edges with, grasses and plum thickets and shrubs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That good cover, it's just gone. Yep.
Yeah. Not even only that. I mean, just trees in general are gone. Like just woods are gone.
Yep.
Not only the tree lines, but the entire woods are gone now.
Yep.
So pretty kind of a sad thing to think about, but I love our farmers, and I also sometimes disagree heavily with some of the practices that they go about things, how they go about things.
Yep.
Anyway, you mentioned ground hunting. This is something we could pick your brain on, Greg. I assume you were probably filming your hunt when you were sitting on the ground with a bow.
Yeah.
Yep. What is your, walk us through your ground hunting setup for filming particularly, and how does it differ from, when you're in a tree and have a little more cover and more, can't move a lot, but you can move more.
I would say pretty similar. And I've gotten to the point now, having self-filmed for, quite a few years, probably several decades at this point, that and especially now with, the cameras are so good nowadays, and there's so many different types of cameras with action cameras, 360 cameras and whatnot, that you can really do, it just takes a few cameras to capture the whole hunt. So yeah, my process is, I've got a DJI camera, like a GoPro type camera. I think people are more familiar with GoPro, so I'll just use that as a reference. But I have one of those. I have a 360 camera, and then my main video camcorder. So the DJI I have on a telescoping stick, to where I have it on the chest pack. So I've got the POV view, basically, like when I'm walking in, gearing up, and doing stuff like that. I've got that view, and then I can quickly take it out of my chest pack and then do the selfie style interviews with it, with the, that telescoping stick. And then also I use it, once I get set up, I'll stake it in the ground and have it over my shoulder.
Okay.
Or I'll have it in front of me, either way. So just depending on the situation. But then I also have the 360 camera that I have set up behind me in ground setups, especially to just to pick up everything. I mean, just virtually can pick up everything with that. Obviously you can't zoom in real close and see the animal, but it's a good second angle camera to have to help capture the entire hunt. And then I guess I do have another little camera that I have mounted on my bow, just a tiny little thing. I think it's called the Insta Go, something like that. But just as another angle to have. So you run 3 or 4 cameras with my setups.
And your DJI, is that typically just to film whatever you're doing, or do you always have it pointing towards you, or is it? Okay. Yeah. And then how do you run your big camera then? You just got a tripod that you run with it?
Tripod. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just on a tripod. And then I usually have a camo drape that I put over the camera, over the tripod, and then can kind of set it up in front of me a little bit to give me a little bit of front cover.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've always just kind of camo painted my tripods, but sometimes I'm not always happy with how they look. And I mean, it's probably just me. It's probably fine, but getting a drape for that's a good idea.
Yeah,
self-filming on the ground can be challenging. Do you have remotes or anything for any of your stuff to where you can turn it on without?
Yeah. Okay. That's one of the things I've learned over the years, is when you mess up an opportunity because you're moving too much to turn a camera on.
Yeah,
that'll make you sour real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
To know, like, and especially it's tempting to, like, you see something at first and then you just make that quick movement to get, to turn the camera on. And a couple of times I've had deer pick me off or turkeys pick me off because of that, just that sudden movement to want to get the camera on right away. And it's like, nope. So
that's one thing with those DJIs having the pre-record feature now.
Yes.
So essentially it's recording on a loop. And then when you hit the button, it back records a minute or 30 seconds or whatever it is. So you can get out of that habit of just like reaching for the camera real fast. You can wait for an opportune time to turn it on and then still catch whatever.
And that's why the camera technology nowadays, thinking back to what it started with, or, what everybody started with, 2-3 decades ago, with, just one camera. I think about how many, times I missed getting something on video, that nowadays it's super easy with cache record, with remotes, with power banks to keep the cameras running the entire time, with a 360 camera. All those things now make it so much easier to be efficient with self-filming and to do a better job of getting good footage of the animal and getting the shot off as well, getting a good shot off. Right.
I mean, that's one of the questions I get most often, and I don't know why it is, but I get about like, what camera should I buy? And like a YouTuber, I guess, a guy that just wants to either film their hunts or be on YouTube, like you guys could probably do everything you needed to do with those 2 cameras and a cell phone, really. I mean, realistically.
Yeah. I mean, really, you could do a lot, most of what we do especially with a DJI or a GoPro type camera, and then even just your cell phone.
Yeah.
In the days of television, getting those kill shots on video and having the footage be really good was a premium like that. That's what you wanted. That's what you needed for the episode. But nowadays it seems like with YouTube and more of longer format type videos, and it's like if you just do a better job of telling the story, you get more of the story in there instead of being limited to those 22 minutes in a television episode. You got to fit the kill in there, like you got to fit your commercials in and all that. I think nowadays that people care less about seeing a perfect kill shot and care more about the story and the process to get there, and are much more forgiving of not having good footage of the animal being shot.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's a lot more enjoyable too. Like maybe not for you, Greg, because I know you've been filming for a long time, but I sometimes get burnt out on filming my hunts just because of all the gear and stuff. And like getting the new iPhone and learning how to, film with it efficiently, it really freed me up to not have that feeling of all this crap I had to set up and tinker with things,
Yeah, if you use your iPhone, especially if you're using one of the newer ones that have, the 4 or 5x zoom on them, the lenses are so much better. They're filming in 4K. If you use that, you can still get close to as good a footage as what you can with, a mirrorless camera or a camcorder. Obviously, you don't have quite the zoom or low light capabilities, but you can do a lot of what you can do with those other cameras. Plus, your camera setup, the camera arm that you need could be so much lighter.
Yeah. Oh, it could be. I mean, they make now ones that weigh a pound or whatever, pound and a half.
Yeah.
Well, I get a lot of messages about, hey, what's a budget camera I could buy to start filming my hunts? And I'm like, well, how much is your budget? And they're like, well, maybe $500 to $800. I'm like, your phone is going to be better than anything you can buy at that price point by a long shot.
Yep. And unless like you're so passionate about it that you want, a higher quality of video production. If you're just doing it for fun, I mean, most everybody has a phone that's plenty good to film a hunt.
Yeah. And really, unless you're going to spend over $1,000 or $2,000, you're not, I don't even know if the quality's there in those lower end camcorders and stuff. And then if you're going to buy a cheap mirrorless, there's a lot of limitations there with, zoom and just the function of using the camera. But I was wondering about self-filming on the ground. I mean, that's something that's very challenging.
It's tough. It's really tough, especially when there's no wind. If you got a good breezy day, then I love it. But I've had hunts where, it's just and maybe it starts out breezy in the afternoon, feels good, and then it just dies down. And then, if you don't have a really good setup, it just feels like, man, there's just no way that this is going to happen. Like it's going to take an absolute miracle for a deer to come in and get good footage of it and get to full draw and do all those things.
Yeah.
But
another thing you can get with these phones now is like you can get little mics that hook into them, and they're lav mics and stuff. I mean, that audio was always an issue with phones, and it's not really anymore. I mean, you can for not very much money, you can have a pretty good setup.
Yeah, these are the glory days of cameras and all the different options that you have to film a hunt. It's pretty awesome. I can't really imagine things getting better. I don't know. The only thing I could think of is they can make a better camcorder, because they've kind of quit making camcorders for deer, like specifically for deer. Not that no camera companies are thinking about deer hunters when they're making their products, but, right? Yeah,
they may be thinking about wildlife photography or something, but they're not thinking about YouTube deer hunters that need a good camcorder.
Exactly. We're still using the same ones from 6-7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, they haven't made one. They really haven't made one since then.
There has been so little advancement that we're still using, cameras that are 6-7 years old.
Mm-hmm. I don't think Sony's came out with a new camcorder.
Nope.
Not. I mean, there's some high end ones.
Not the smaller kind. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, we'll get off this nerdy topic of cameras. It's a niche group of guys that like to hear about this.
Right.
But if you're going to get into filming your hunt, don't spend money on a camera yet. Go just use your phone for a while. And then if you want to spend a couple $1,000, shake a stick at it.
Yep.
All right. Well, we'll stick on the gear topic though, Greg. I wrote down some questions just to kind of keep things organized on the podcast here. You guys, you've been hunting a long time on public land now, running around all different parts of the country. and gear has changed a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like we are talking about camera gear. Like gear has changed a ton
Yep.
from 10 years ago. What do you think a piece of gear that like matters way less that people put way too much emphasis on?
A couple things come to mind. One would be just high price camo, premium camo
Yeah.
for the average deer hunter. Probably not hunting in the kind of conditions that may necessitate having really high end clothing, performance clothing. Now, if you're hunting out west, I think that'd be a slightly different story. Obviously, where weather and is a little more volatile. But yeah, premium camo, and another one I guess would be just the high end bows, premium bows as well. Like the mid tier type bows nowadays are so good that especially for somebody getting into the sport and then sees everybody shooting the high end flagship bows, which I shoot a flagship type bow myself. But for somebody getting into the sport, or maybe that's on a limited budget, the mid-tier type bows are so good nowadays, and especially for, again, average type hunting situations. Whitetails, is shooting out to 20, 30, 40 yards. Yeah, I think, a mid-tier bow, $500, $600 bow, like, one that we kind of co-developed with Bear Archery, the THP Adapt.
Mm-hmm.
That bow has been extremely popular, and that's like a, depending on the gear package, it's a $450 to $650 bow. And most of our guys actually hunt with that bow. We're doing all this hunting with a basically a budget type bow, and they perform extremely well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can buy a 5-year-old flagship bow for $500, and it's going to be, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference in what you could buy new today. That is a technology that seems to kind of, it plateaued pretty heavily 10 years ago, probably.
Yeah. But again, I get new bows, every year, every other year, something like that, or even before, I was doing something in the hunting space. That was just, archery and hunting was kind of like my big thing in life. That was my one thing that I like to invest in. So I always bought the most expensive bow that I could afford at the time. Yeah, but for somebody just getting into it, or it's certainly not necessary. A $2,000 flagship bow is not necessary to hunt.
Those two industries, the clothing industry and the bow manufacturing industry, whatever you want to say, archery industry, they've probably done the best marketing for their products of anybody. I mean, cult like followings for anybody that, whether you're a Sitka guy or a Kuyu guy or first, it's just like Matthews, Hoyt, Bear. I mean, it's just it's pretty funny how heavily influenced marketing is in those particular industries. Not that it's not unsimilar to any other industry, but no, those are two good ones, man. I think it's good for people to hear that every now and again. Just like, because there's a lot of noise in the gear world, especially this time of year, because a lot of stuff gets released at ATA, which was last, or whatever, I guess a month and a half ago now. And you see these new shiny things, and then you go spend a bunch of money that you probably don't need to on it.
Oh, trust me, I'm guilty of that.
Oh, me too.
I do like that. Yeah, like, anytime I could get a new bow, it was an exciting thing. But it's just obviously not necessary. Or new arrows, new sight, or whatever it may be. Yeah, the new shiny thing.
Yeah, it is fun. I mean, I think that's probably a curse of being a gear junkie. Like, there's some guys that just don't care, Yep.
And there's some of the best hunters I know.
Yeah,
that just, they have, a bow that's worked for them for 10, 15, 20 years, and they don't really change much about it.
No. Like Dan, he's like that. Like you don't ask him a gear question. It's pretty funny because when we used to do the podcast together, some people would ask him specifics about his bow or anything really, and he'd be like, I don't know, ask Josh, he knows what I'm using. Like, he knows better than me. But what about a piece of gear that is kind of more overlooked that you think people should care more about?
Overlooked. I was thinking about this the other day. Calls, I think, in that like just having calls with you, having a grunt call and having rattling antlers with you. I mean, virtually throughout the entire deer season. So there's a guy that I hunted with for quite a few years. His name is Mike Lutt. He's a extremely accomplished bow hunter. I kind of, when I got into filming, I filmed on his property or filmed him on his property for a number of years because he had, he's a really good deer hunter. He had a lot of deer, so there's a lot of opportunities to just kind of see how somebody who is very passionate and very successful at bow hunting deer, like how he goes about things. And he, September, October, November, December, he always had rattling antlers with him, and he rattled in bucks in all of those months. So like September, most people probably aren't thinking I'm taking rattling antlers with me, usually mid-October into November, and then maybe quit carrying them late season in December. But he's, rattled in bucks, and I don't know if he rattled one in and killed one in September, but all the other months, even late season December, even towards the end of December, he's rattled in deer. So having calls with you, especially having a call that can reach, most people probably have a grunt call in their backpack throughout the entire season. But I think having antlers with you throughout the entire season, is not a bad thing as well, especially when there's a buck in the distance that you need to get his attention, and maybe it's too breezy or maybe it's too far for a grunt call. If you have the antlers, at least you have another option at getting that buck's attention and turning him and getting him to come your way. Or even like early season, maybe you just kind of do a little bit of light sparring and, maybe rake some branches or something like that, and can pull a buck out that may be nearby that you didn't know was there. So I think just having those calls with you, at all times is something that maybe gets overlooked. Now, obviously people will carry the rattling antlers during the rut, but I think there's times outside of the rut where it can be useful to have those potentially, to blind call or just to call it something that's too far away from the grunt call. Because I remember it was a hunt that Don Kiske had. This was probably 20, 25 years ago, like on a video reshot. I don't know. It was like a 200-inch buck. It was an absolute giant buck. It was on a windy morning. He saw it cruising in the timber on the other side of the field, and he rattled. I think he might even tried to grunt at it first, couldn't hear him, and he rattled at it. The buck came in and he shot it. And he said, like, if I didn't have the antlers with me, what would I have done? Like, you'd have just been out of luck.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and obviously that was a time of the year that was probably, late October, November hunt where most people would have the antlers, but that's just something I was thinking about the other day. And I know that Jake, he was doing some rattling in September this last season as well. But I mean, I think that's a good thought I had.
Well, I've heard Johnny Eberhart talk about rattling in deer opening week in Michigan by sparring, like lightly sparring. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. Like, I don't carry him. Like, I carry him when I'm out west on a rut hunt. Yeah. But in Indiana, I never have rattling antlers. Have you guys seen a difference between like synthetic antlers, real antlers, bags?
I think we've rattled in deer with all of the above that you just mentioned. Probably less so the bags. And I have I think it's called Black Rack.
Yeah.
It's 2-piece synthetic rattling antlers. And those are lightweight and compact enough that I can just take them with me all the time. And that's why I guess, at least having that option with me, they're not as loud as a good set of real antlers, a heavier, more massive set of real antlers. So I'm not going to get as much distance, but it's certainly, at least I have them with me all the time. Like, I don't leave them behind because they're a burden to carry. So at least I have that option with me all the time. Yeah.
I think that's one thing that's so, the rattling bag's so nice because it's, it's easy to carry. You fit in a little pocket or something, but I didn't know.
And they obviously do work. And some of our guys have carried them. I just remember I'm kind of adverse to the rattling bags because there was just growing up hunting heavily pressured public land, and then also on the private land that I had access on, there was a bunch of other people there that were hunting there too, and I would just hear guys just mashing those rattling bags together, and it was probably just a couple individuals that they would just do it incessantly, like just constantly rattling, and you could tell it was the bag.
Yeah.
So it's like just that noise grated on my nerves. So I've never used one myself, but it's another good option to have, something that's, compact that you can throw in your bag. And
there's probably something too, like having unique calls or like custom made calls. Like I just got a box call in from, I can't remember. I cannot believe I can't remember his name. It's a shame because I could go look at the package over there. Yeah. Calling the Turkey Man or something. He's from Alabama. Anyway, it's like an aluminum box call, and it sounds real unique, and I kind of like the way it sounded because it doesn't really sound like a regular box call.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's like something to do with the rattling bags. Like they all kind of sound the same. Deer have gotten accustomed to them.
Yeah.
Or they don't sound, they sound too synthetic.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just know hearing that rattle bag every 10, 15 minutes from a guy that's sitting 150 yards away from me on public land. It's just like, oh, come on.
Well, maybe I have the little, because there was one year, this wasn't that long ago, maybe, it was a long time ago now, probably 10 years ago, but I was setting on a piece of private opening day of shotgun season in Indiana, and I was probably like 150 yards from the property line, and 30 minutes before daylight, I heard like rattling, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's a buck. I mean, it was antlers, but then it proceeded to rattle every probably 10 minutes, and it was before dark. I mean, then after light, he kept rattling. I'm just like, oh,
yep.
So I've been there. That's funny. I think your tone on rattling has a lot to do with like the time of year you're doing it. And I know John, I just keep bringing John Eberhard up because he's known for talking about this, but like early season, if you run a lot of trail cameras, that deer spar all throughout the year. I mean, after they lose their velvet, and maybe, instead of clanging the antlers together hard might not be the best option, but sparring might bring a buck in to be out of curiosity, not necessarily anger, but just seeing what's going on.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think anytime you can add, more realism into your calling, like obviously you're matching the time of year, you're not mashing them together in September, but like you said, and like John does, some sparring, maybe raking a branch next to you or something like that. Or if you're on the ground doing a little bit of kind of raking and, just adding a little more realism into your calling. So yeah, I guess going back to this question overall, I think just, I myself have done that where I've been in situations where I don't take antlers with me early in the season or late in the season. And there's been opportunities like where I felt like, I should have them. At least it would give me another option to get a buck's attention or to try to get something's curiosity and get it to come in.
Yeah. I want to go back to filming because this is something I was always wanted to ask you, especially for guys that are getting into it and are thinking about starting to film their hunts. Is there ever times where you are over filming your hunt and like carrying the gear and all that? Like I get sometimes.
Over filming, like just going too far with it. Yeah.
Or not over filming, not in that manner, but just like, I want to go hunting without the camera.
Oh,
because this is your job, right? Like not that you don't have an option to do this, but it's in your best interest to have the camera with you all the time. Right. Is that ever a burden to you guys?
Personally speaking, no. I would be doing pretty much the same thing, even if I didn't have the job that I have. Because I've been filming my hunts, since I was probably 15, so about 30 years now. And the majority of that time, it wasn't for anything but just because I love to do it and to be able to show family and friends. Early on, I guess I didn't really do much for interviews. I don't like talking to the camera. I still don't like talking to the camera. But back then, because I was, I didn't do that part of it because I'm just didn't like it. Yeah. But nowadays, if I wasn't filming to edit for some kind of final product for our channel or something like that, I would still be filming most everything. I probably just wouldn't be doing as much talking. Yep.
That's fair enough.
Yep.
That is one thing that you have to do to tell a story. That I've had a lot of folks like want to send me footage to like, okay, maybe you can use this. I killed this deer, and they send me like just a kill shot or whatever. They don't, and it's like, well, I can't really use it. You hate that for them because they're usually excited to show you something. But
Yeah, if there's just no context there, it's just another kill shot.
Right.
Not to diminish their accomplishment,
No.
but it's just there's a million kill shots on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, the story behind it and that whole process, and your thought process, and the steps you're taking to get there, and that's obviously storytelling is a huge part of it, of what we do.
Yeah. So if you ever start thinking about filming, you gotta almost think about, how am I going to tell this story completely without taking anything away from your hunt too at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys, okay, so you guys have a pretty big group of guys now that run around filming pretty much from, well, it never really stops. I mean, I guess it kind of does a little bit in the summertime probably as far as hunting, but from September to now, essentially, y'all are running around deer hunting in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to imagine, out of everybody, I'm sure there's some burnout that happens sometime during the season, whether that be traveling or just the grind of running on public land. Do you guys have any tips or tricks for guys that do feel that burnout? There's some guys that are just animals that just never stop,
Yeah.
But do you have any advice for guys that that do struggle with that after a long season?
Yeah, I would say we experience that a little bit. There's times you just get tired. I don't think it's ever, man, I'm sick of this, I don't want to do this anymore as an occupation. It's just, yeah, you
Sure.
get tired. And, one thing Aaron especially is really good about is prioritizing sleep during the hunting season. And I don't know if, when we were in camp together, Warb is usually the first person going to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was no late nights.
Nope. And it's just because he realizes how important that sleep is for him to be able to stay, physically and especially mentally fresh throughout the season. So I think, and whatever that looks like, prioritizing sleep, maybe it's not staying up as late, hanging out with the buddies at night, which is tough because that's obviously a very fun part of camp, of being in deer camp. So yeah, I mean, if you can find ways to prioritize sleep, maybe find ways to keep things fun. I guess, okay, for me personally, one thing I've started to do a little bit throughout the deer hunting season is to go bird hunting every now and then, just to do something a little bit different. It's still, I'm still getting out there doing something I enjoy, but there's not, not as much pressure as what there would be for actually filming a hunt. So just doing something else that you enjoy to do, just break things up a little bit. And there's some guys, like you said, the guys that really like to grind, that love deer hunting so much they will go every day as much as they possibly can. I'm not one of those guys. I do love deer hunting, but I also like other types of hunting, and specifically, upland bird hunting, to the point where, yeah, if I need a day off or something like that, go out and do something like that, or even just a half a day, even just like a half a day here and there during a deer hunt, to go out and just kind of do something a little bit different and get your, yeah.
I think for most guys, it's just it's okay not to go a week or so, just take some time off.
Take some time off. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually most of us, you take a couple of days off and you're like, okay, I'm ready to go
refreshed
again.
And ready to go again.
Yeah. That's much to get you fired back up.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. Yeah. Just taking a day off here and there. And then, depending on where a person's at in life, if they have family, if they have children and stuff like that, trying to keep those things in balance and realizing that hunting is not the most important thing in life.
Yeah.
Trying to, yep. And I think, any of us that are in this space or have done this long enough or do it as an occupation, have realized at some point that you do need to find that balance and sometimes just throttle things back a little bit.
Yeah. And that's easier said than done, because oftentimes, especially in the beginning of YouTube, if you throttle off, you're behind, or you're not going to grow.
Yep.
And I think that's what maybe a lot of people don't see, or they forget, I guess, is you guys were once the YouTube channel that had 25,000 subscribers and were grinding,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah, if people that watch our channel have only, maybe started watching in the past few years or have only watched the past few years of content. Like if you go back to the beginning stuff, it was pretty rough. Like we didn't have much money, just kind of trying to scratch out a living doing this. And if you look at our vehicles at that time, we've upgraded a little bit since, but our vehicles back then were comically bad. Warp's little Ford Focus, the Smurf, like had 2 doors that wouldn't close properly. Like he had to locked his keys in one time or something. Like he had to slip in through the trunk to get into the cab of the car to unlock it or something like that, because one of the door, like all the doors, like he had to leave one door open a little bit, just cracked open to be able to get into the vehicle. So yeah, it was just absurd. Like, so those early days, we can look back on and laugh about, because it was pretty raw and rough. And
I can remember, I think I was watching you guys whenever you were at Midwest Whitetail. And I remember when you guys hit like 30,000 subscribers, and that was like a kind of a big deal, maybe, or a milestone you guys talked about.
Yeah.
But I remember like you guys were hunting with like Scott Cronin in Kentucky, and I know Scott, and just roughing it in like an old boat.
Yep.
So
yeah. Oh yeah. That Kentucky trip, Jake, Ted, and Aaron were there with Scott. Yeah. And they were, intense. It was 90 degrees during the day, buggy, snakes. Yeah. I guess that's another thing that's changed a little bit. Like in the early years, we did a lot more tent camping. And now we typically do more truck camping. Like we're in our vehicles. We kind of have our vehicles set up to where we can sleep in them. We've got, all our gear in there. We don't have, a camp that we have to go back to. We can be a little bit more mobile by truck camping. So that has changed a little bit, but still, yeah, I mean, that's probably my favorite way to do it. Although, well, I will say the Airbnb was kind of nice.
Well, yeah,
when we were all hunting together, that was nice.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And if you have a big camp like that, that's really nice, because you can all kind of relax and hang out a little easier.
Yeah, but I do know in those early days of being in a tent, there were a lot of sleepless nights just because of weather conditions and stuff like that. So
lack of comfort.
Lack of comfort for sure. Yep, I've had some guys sleeping in tents where it rains at night and everything gets soaked in there, and tents that blew away in a windstorm in Wyoming and stuff like that. So yeah.
What's your guys' truck setup? How do you guys sleep in your truck comfortably?
So we have, let's see, most of the guys now actually are getting the Go Fast campers.
Okay.
Like, the platform on top where the tent pops up, it's kind of in a triangle shape. Several of the guys have those now. And myself, I just sleep in the back of it. I have a cot in there and just sleep on that. That works really well.
Like with a camper shell?
Camper shell. Yep. Yeah. Kind of a high rise camper shell, and sleep in the back. Yeah, I'm trying to think of anybody else. Like Ted has a 4Runner. He just, folds a seat down and sleeps in there. And so, just kind of a mixture, but I would say has made us more than a little bit, quite a bit more efficient as far as just having all the gear in there. You don't have to go back to a camp somewhere. You sleep better because you're staying dry. You don't have to worry about your bunch of stuff, water getting in the tent at night, or the wind whipping it and not being able to sleep because of that. So that's definitely made us more efficient.
All right, let's I want to zoom out a little bit and just like talk about some big picture.
Yeah.
Stuff, Greg, like so the hunting public, right? You guys have a business. What's something that people would be surprised about the hunting public and like the day in and day out operations of running a large YouTube channel?
Surprised about, actually, the beginnings. I think what I just talked about is kind of one thought that I had, is that if people watched us now, they might be a little bit surprised to see how we operated back in the beginning, with what I just described. And then also, we basically just started in my house in Iowa. Like the merchandise that we had back then, we didn't have Hayden, our brand manager, that does an amazing job with our merchandise now, but we basically just had a couple of different t-shirts, and it was run out of my basement, and we were fulfilling the orders ourselves. So I think maybe people might be a little bit surprised to see how we started out if they've only seen our more recent stuff. But that's one thing. Let's see, on a day-to-day, I guess speaking from my personal experience, that people that would look at somebody like us would say that, man, you guys just get to hunt all the time. It's like, it'd be nice if I could hunt all the time. And I'm thinking back in this last season and 2 seasons prior to that, there were, if I look at how many times I actually hunted myself with a weapon in my hand, and it basically came out to be once or twice a week. It'd basically be the equivalent of a weekend warrior that only gets to go out on the weekends. That's about the number of times that I got to hunt with a weapon in my hand. Now, obviously, I'm spending a lot of time out there filming, so I'm in the field a lot. But yeah, there's been a couple seasons recently where I think people again would say they'd look at us and think, man, it'd be nice to be able to hunt all the time. But there's, like, if you hunt more, or if you're a weekend warrior, or maybe get out a little bit more than that, well, you're probably hunting as much or more than I am in some years. So just because there is a lot that goes into it with filming the guys, with editing, with business aspects, with family and stuff like that, I guess maybe they don't see the behind the scenes of how much time it takes, filming, editing, running a business, and all those things that go into that, the decisions that need to be made, scheduling. That might be something people would be surprised about, how much time it takes to schedule out a turkey tour, how much time it takes to schedule out a deer tour, and how much time that goes in to understanding the rules and regulations of those states, of those specific public land areas, of the, maybe it's a draw tag, maybe it's a antler restriction you need to understand. Like, I think people would be surprised at how much time it takes to plan and have a good grasp on the rules and regulations for those areas. Because obviously none of us want to commit any kind of wildlife violation. I mean, obviously, like, we are all about following the rules and regulations, but sometimes they are so different from state to state. They're so nuanced, they get changed. They're in the fine print in a rule book or something like that, that it just takes a lot of time just reading, going through and understanding all the different laws.
And some states are drastically different from one from the other. I mean, what you can and can't do, especially if you start, because some people might be able to get away with some of those fine details that don't, that really don't matter. I don't want to say that. That sounds bad, but like, you guys are, everything you do is on film. You kind of have a target on your back because you're popular. And so, like, it might seem like, for example, I accidentally didn't wear orange in Michigan this year. I was hunting with a recurve bow on private land during a doe season, and I just didn't even think about it. Like, it was during September, it was during a doe season, and I wasn't allowed to. We weren't using guns on this property, and I just didn't even think about it. And I put the video out, and then it was pretty drastic. Like, some people were like, "This is no big deal. Don't worry about it." And then there's other people like, "You just poached that deer."
Right.
And so people don't, like, it probably wouldn't be a big deal if you were just Joe Blow out there bow hunting, not that anybody should blatantly try to break rules, but it's important to look at those little details everywhere you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked to game wardens in the past that kind of know what we do, like the amount of traveling that we do. And they're like, yeah, I mean, at some point somebody's probably going to slip up. Like, it's almost inevitable if you do enough hunting that you slip up with something like you just described, like maybe not wearing orange during, a specific time that you're supposed to. But I appreciate what you did, though. You admitted to it. You said, what happened, and that helps people learn from it. There's probably somebody out there that watched that and then thought, "Ooh, I just did the same thing. Like, I didn't realize that." So I think, obviously being transparent with when stuff like that happens. And, we had, Ted we had an incident in Mississippi last year where Ted got a ticket because he was out filming somebody, and he apparently needed to have bought his permit at that time. But, we talked about it and, told people, we got a ticket. Here's what it was. And, if you're doing a similar thing, this is something to be aware of.
Yep. I've heard of some states where to even go recover a deer with someone, you have to have a permit or a hunting license.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so that's something people wouldn't even think about. Like if you live in a certain state, you call a buddy to go help you.
Yep.
And you run into the right game warden that needs to write a ticket that day, know.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to think about that. It could be illegal for somebody to come out and help you track a deer, or even to spot blood and say, well, there's blood. That's aiding in the recovery of the animal, and that if they didn't have a hunting license, that could be illegal. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, some states it's not. You got to just check your regulations.
Yep.
But those laws are out there, and you got to abide by them. I'm not going to keep you forever, Greg. I was shooting for an hour, so we got about 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
So this is something I something to go off of, I guess the whole hunting industry right now, or what's going on in hunting. Like, is there anything right now that, like, how do you feel about the future of hunting right now? And is there any worries you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always things to be concerned about. I mean, you don't want to sound like doom and gloom. I think we are incredibly blessed and privileged to have the opportunities that we have. But there are certainly things that are of concern. One that hits home is habitat loss and just loss of hunting opportunity. So like I think I'd mentioned the family farm, the property that I grew up hunting. We had the family farm and a couple other adjacent properties that I grew up hunting on. And, now we still have the family farm, but the other two properties have basically, been sold by the landowners. They passed away. It went to their kids. Their kids, didn't have any interest in the property. And so they're selling it off in chunks. And now, where we used to deer hunt and pheasant hunt, now there's, it's subdivided and there's a bunch of houses. Mm-hmm. So, that kind of, habitat loss, and just loss of hunting opportunity. Like, I'm looking at my nephews who we still have just, the opportunity around there is just a shadow of what it was when I was their age, coming up hunting. And then also there's, some public land nearby that was really good hunting as I was growing up. And now because of, a series of floods, a historic flood that went through that area, disease, particularly EHD, like what used to be a very good hunting, very healthy deer population now is, there's just really not much opportunity there anymore. So, looking back 20, 30 years ago at what I had when I was coming up hunting compared to what like my nephews have now, and there's not nearly as much opportunity. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that, with, losing hunting properties, whether it be to development, people leasing it, perhaps, they can't afford to pay a lease. Things like that, where there's just diminished hunting opportunity is obviously a concern. So, and then that's, highlights the importance of public lands.
It does. Yeah. And that's, something that we're constantly fighting for as well, or at least it feels like we have been the last few years.
Oh, especially in the last couple of years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With all the attacks on public lands. Yep.
Yeah. And obviously those are super important, and we don't want any of our public land to be sold off or touched for any political reason. Mm-hmm. But I think what the downfall of hunting will eventually be with those are going to be those micro losses, where like just properties here and there either get taken out by farmers to make them into crop fields, or development of housing or whatever else, data centers. Now that's a big kind of a hot topic right now.
Yep.
And those little micro things that you're like, oh, I just lost 100 acres. Oh, I just lost 20 acres. Oh, I just lost. And then over the next 20 years, what's that look like?
Yep. Those acres are probably not coming back.
No.
So there just continues to be less and less and less.
Yep. So every time one of those little things happens, it's just gone forever. That's what's so hard about it, I guess.
Yeah.
You never know. Maybe some program will pop up one year but at that point in time, it'd probably be too far gone. But, What about positives about what's going on right now in the hunting world? We'll get off the negatives and with something positive.
Something positive. I think that depends on how you look at it. I mean, I think, technology like the mapping apps has, I think, created opportunities to go explore and hunt new places that perhaps a person wouldn't have been confident to do previously.
Mm-hmm.
So some people might look at that as negative. Some people might look at that as a positive. There's just being aware of and having the confidence and the ability to go explore and hunt different places and getting different experiences. That's been something that's been, pretty cool for me personally. Like growing up in Eastern Nebraska, like the hunting I did was all focused right there. It was deer hunting, turkey hunting, didn't really do much beyond that. And, it was at 18 years old, I had planned this antelope hunt. Like it was a big deal. I was, researching this area in Western Nebraska, trying to get plat maps and, trying to figure out the logistics of how to go do this big antelope hunt in Western Nebraska. And if in the end, it rained so much that I canceled. I ended up not going, but it was like this big trip that I prepared for. It was like this huge thing that was like, holy cow, I'm actually going to do this. And, kind of like it was stepping out of my comfort zone to even think about doing something like that. Some of that is, maybe personality, but some of it, nowadays with, mapping software and stuff like that, I think it makes it easier to go experience new places and new things and do different types of hunting, and maybe not only hunting, but hiking and just going into areas that maybe previously just seemed like it was, might've been outside of your comfort zone to do something like that, for whatever reason. So yeah, I think I have enjoyed getting out and exploring and hunting new areas that previously that maybe I wouldn't have when I was younger. Maybe some of that's just a function of age too.
Yeah. Age, experience,
confidence, all those things. Yep.
But that's a fact that those mapping apps have changed hunting. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I remember the first time I went to Colorado elk hunting, I literally was printing off like 8x11 white pieces of maps and like laminating them to keep in my pack with me, and it's not even like I could plan a Western hunt 3 days before I go now. Like if you just sit down with a mapping software on X or whatever. And it just wasn't like that back then, at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you could buy I don't know if you remember, Onyx had like chips you could buy and put them in like a Garmin GPS system.
Yeah.
But it was far away from what we have now on our phones.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we might've talked about this in the tree when we were hunting. I think I might've told you the story of when I was hunting in Colorado, and this was 25 years ago prior to the mapping apps. And I had just paper maps and a compass, and that's how I was navigating through this new area in Colorado. I was hunting with a group of guys, but they sent me out one morning into an area that I'd never been to. And that morning in the dark, I came back and I was using my map and compass to navigate back to camp. I think I told you how I got to a spot where I didn't recognize where I was at and felt like I was lost. And they said, if you get lost, just sit down and yell. Don't make things worse. Just yell for help. Somebody will eventually hear you. So I was just getting ready to yell for help because I thought for sure I was lost. And actually I thought for sure I navigated back to camp, but I didn't recognize anything. I didn't see camp. And then I went up a little bit farther on the ridge so I could yell, projected a little farther, and there was camp right there. I navigated my way back. I was off by just a little bit. But nowadays with Onyx and the mapping software, like that's no big deal. That's not as big of a hurdle to get over, is to confidently go into the backcountry, hunt new areas, get to explore and see, these different areas and have to worry about getting back or getting lost, I should say.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys that has just started hunting in the last 15 years just have no idea how it is. I mean,
yeah.
I hate to use the word game changer, but that was truly a game changer when you could be on your phone and know exactly where you're standing at all times, and whose land you're on or where the property lines exactly were. And I mean, it's just immensely helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. If we'll end it with this, Greg, unless you got something else to say about that portion.
Oh, I was just trying to think of another positive thing. I think perhaps
Yeah.
because we are on YouTube,
Yeah.
with social media, and some people would argue that's a negative thing, but
Yeah.
I do think that in a way, social media, we can disseminate information, and it's a way to connect with people. It's a way to in some ways to help teach and mentor people that you maybe couldn't reach otherwise. A way to get information out, like we referred to the attacks on public land. It's a way you can get information out to a lot of people about what is going on, and getting people to be informed and to act and to rally around these causes. So
Yeah. And people tend to put a negative spin on everything, and there is negatives to almost everything, right? And it's easy to blame whatever scenario you are in life or where we're at in life on certain things, but almost everything has the intentions of being positive, and there's some negative outcomes because it's like social media.
Yeah.
But it's tough. You got to remember that as a deer hunter too. Like I don't think, and this is, people don't agree, some people don't agree with this, but like right now is the best time, I think, to like kill a big giant buck compared to any other time. It just seems like there's at least for me, looking at the deer hunting community, just so many big bucks get killed now that did not in generations past. Now, your experience or your the experience of hunting might be a little bit worse than it used to be. I don't know. But if you're out there just to kill a big deer,
yeah,
it'd be hard for me to be convinced that right now is not a good time to kill a Boone and Crockett deer.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Now, like I said, there might be some bad experiences or more people or whatever, but it just seems like there's still a lot of good opportunity out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong too. Maybe there's also this theory is like everybody just thinks the past was better because you were younger and like
right.
you're more excited about things and you had more time and less responsibility, so you perceive things as better. But just because it's just because you were younger and healthier and had more time.
Yeah, I think about that often. I think that perfectly describes how I look back on my hunting experience growing up, and I loved it. And maybe it was that newness of of just getting into something young, and I had a lot of time to do it. But I also think that, and one thing that I really enjoyed was that we had a really cool core group of guys in my hometown, kind of associated with this archery club in town, and we would get together. If somebody shot a deer, we would help butcher it. We would cook up fresh backstraps or burgers on the grill, and just it was kind of a deer camp vibe that we had often, and I really enjoyed that about my experience growing up hunting.
Yeah, that's those things, like those are the things that come and go, and then you wish they were, you wish you were back in the good old days of hunting.
Yep.
We had the same thing. We used to, my uncle who lives down the road here, he used to have like a little shop where he had all the butchering stuff. And during deer season, whenever someone would kill a deer, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, we'd all go there and help each other butcher our deer. Then those times are gone now.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't think the deer hunting was better, but the experience was better for me, at least.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't have said it better. And it was before the big buck craze too. It didn't matter what the person shot.
Yeah.
4-corn spike, doe, 2-year-old buck, didn't matter. It was the same level of excitement. Or if somebody shot like a nice 2 to 3-year-old type buck, like 120 to 130 inch deer, it was like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah. Good for you. Like that's really cool to know that those type of deer are out there. But there wasn't the, as much jealousy or shaming about what a person shot. It felt like maybe a more pure time of deer hunting.
Well, you guys are, I mean, not to toot your horn, Greg, but like you guys are credited a little bit with bringing some of that aspect of hunting back as the hunting public. Like I've heard multiple people say that to me, like that they let go a little bit from watching you guys, from going into the air where it was the outdoor channel, private farms or private outfitters, primarily what you were seeing. And that's kind of where, at least in my opinion, that's probably where the big buck craze got it created for the most part. At least for the average guy just watching the Outdoor Channel. And then the way you guys kind of broke off from Midwest whitetail on the public land and made it okay to shoot a 120-inch deer again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, we shoot plenty of those.
Yeah.
But I think we all had very similar experiences of growing up hunting with family and friends and that kind of vibe that I just described. And I don't think we've really lost that. I don't think there's anybody in our group that's only targeting a specific antler size deer or specific age deer. It's more about the experience of the hunt and who you're with.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Last question. If YouTube went away tomorrow, what would you be doing, Greg?
What would I be doing?
Selling t-shirts.
Honestly, I'd probably still be doing something with the camera. I love videography, photography, video production. And I can't remember if we talked about this in the tree or not, but if I wasn't doing hunting, I would want to do something documentary type videos on mission trips. Because I think, did I tell you about this? That I went to the Amazon on a mission trip, went to Africa, and I think doing documentary films on those types of projects would be something I would love to do.
Those would be important stories. Like that would be super interesting.
Yep.
Have you ever watched, there's a guy named Drew Binsky on YouTube. He goes to he'll go to different countries, but he'll go to like the real urban areas or the real remote areas and like find just different forms of life that are kind of hidden. And then he lives with them for a while or visits with them or and just documents it and kind of tells the story of how the people there really are, not necessarily
interesting
perceived. But he's been to every single country and did it now, I think. I mean, he's been on YouTube forever, but.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, if YouTube went away, obviously there wouldn't be that avenue for storytelling, but I think something with the camera and something storytelling is what I would be doing. I love that. Yep. Yeah,
that's cool. All right. Not that anybody that subscribes to me probably doesn't subscribe to the Hunting Public, but I'll leave your guys' channel below, and make sure if you guys haven't caught up with the Hunting Public's videos and stuff, go over there and give them a watch. I'm sure you guys are you guys putting turkey hunts out right now? You probably are, aren't you?
Just starting to. Yep.
Yeah. So turkey tours coming up, and that'll always be exciting, full of adventure and bunch of turkeys on the ground. Mishaps. Yeah.
For sure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button before you leave, and we'll talk to you later.